been busy. Raise your hand if you've ever got tired and feel like you just need a couple days off. Most people would have both hands up right now. That's our world, fast-paced and income-driven. That's why we get caught up in our own lives so often, and that's why it's understandable when most people don't focus on worries that aren't their own. So what makes someone become a humanitarian? Someone whose whole life focuses on the welfare of other humans.
When you go back and you see kids that were living on the streets, kids had no structure, they had no routine, people who had nothing, they didn't have meals. When you see that they're all of a sudden they're waking up, they have structure, they have something to do, they have a meal in their belly, their life changes completely. They like I said, their self-esteem changes, their self-worth, their ability to know who they are in the world and what they have the potential of becoming. You know, to give that hope, to give that dream, and then to watch people actually use that to do good for themselves and others it's amazing. It becomes an addiction.
And with Serena's help, we'll find the meaning of life to a humanitarian.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. We'll match you with the perfect buddy. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
We're offering you a free membership, so please sign up today. Share this with your friends and family, and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
Good Friday, everyone. Your real worth isn't defined by your net worth. What makes you valuable is how you use what you have been given. All of us have gifts. Make sure you're making the most of yours. Have an amazing Friday.
It is now the bottom of the hour. I'm excited to welcome Nancy Matthews to our program today. Nancy is an author of a book. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel for you guys. There it is, The One Philosophy. I want to talk to Nancy not only about the re-release of the book, but also what it's been like for her to share the message with all of you guys. Nancy, great to have you on with us.
Hello, hello, hello. So happy to be here.
When you do nothing, nothing happens. Best time to take action is now.
This is the time to work on you and your business.
So I've created a group,
an online academy for professionals and entrepreneurs. Power Partners will help you
to start helping yourself.
Helped me change my life and my business.
Not a Toastmasters, it's not a BNI, it's not any of these, but it is. So it's all this stuff in one place.
Get the results that you deserve right now. So what are you waiting for? Let's make it happen.
See you in Power Partners.
Although it may seem a little mundane, packing up boxes and, being on the assembly line, what we're really doing is putting in hundreds of hours into the people on the streets who need us. And they need us in a way that none of us will ever understand. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been on the grounds every day. They know we're coming today, they know we're coming tomorrow, and they look forward to seeing us because we're the one little bit of hope that they have to have a warm meal in their bellies and to know that somebody in the world is actually caring for them and loving them. And without people like you showing up today to give your time, your energy, and your spirit, none of this is possible. So I want to really say thank you to everyone, because what we're doing here today may seem small, but it's actually really, really big, and it's impacting hundreds and thousands of families. So I thank you, I love you, I look forward to doing this with you today. My name is Serena Buffalino, and I am the founder of Help Heal Humanity. Help Heal Humanity is a charity that is focused on unconditional giving, love, and support to some of the most vulnerable communities in the world.
Bonjour, comment ça va? Et toi? Ça va très bien. Ni hao, hola, buongiorno. Bienvenue, Wan Ying, bienvenidos, benvenuta, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each and every week, I get the tremendous opportunity to take you on a journey to places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I get one magnificent moment to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. And I do this because, say, along the story of my life, I learned about the power of stories. I believe in stories. And I believe that if people begin to see their and hear their own stories, they can use it as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help them discover the value of their own stories. Ladies and gentlemen, I am coming to you live from France. And some people ask, why do I pronounce it? Because that's how it's pronounced. In the United States, we just say France. But in France, you go France. So, bienvenue, France, la France. So, le France, Oh, they have to get the pronunciation and whether masculine and feminine together. I'm here. This is near the school. This is actually right next to a school right here in France, middle school, actually elementary and middle school. I am here wearing this is Napoleon, the symbol of Napoleon. What better place to wear it but here? People always ask me, how did I become a gemological storyteller? And we were having some technical problems, so I don't know if I'll be able to show you some slides, but this is the importance of being able to tell a story. Here we go. Voila. Thank you to technology and my excellent executive producer, Barbara Beckley. Becoming a gemological storyteller. This month is opal. And when you look at opal, what opal is, it's really just a symbol of what this show is about, because an opal is made up of just three simple elements: silicon oxide and water. Something just found everywhere. Silicon oxide, dioxide, and water. That's it. And they're put together in an amorphous way, meaning that it's not like a mineral. It's not set up in a certain pattern, which is the symbol or the definition of a mineral. Opal is amorphous, which means that it can come in different patterns, different shapes. And those silicon beads sit on a thin, very thin layer of water, almost like a dream. In the gemology world, we call this an amorphous structure, meaning that it doesn't have a set pattern. It can be anything it wants. So when you look at opal, and the thing that you see when you see the beauty of an opal is the impurities. It's the things that's not supposed to be there, the things that did not come with the original package of what an opal is. An impurity is something that was included. So when you see the various colors of opal, I want you to begin to think about how all these opals that I'm showing you right now have the same molecular structure, the same molecular and chemical composition, but yet you see so many different things that can come out of that. Opal is beautiful because what it does is those silicon beads that are put together in just little balls with just minute spaces in between each of those beads are there, serve as a platform. So when the light comes through, the light shines through the silicon beads and is refracted on that thin layer of water. And from that, you see the different colors of opal. Now imagine how that can be you. We are all human beings. We are all have a certain molecular structure, and it's the things that's inside of us that give us our color. that give us how we interact with the light. So if I'm going to begin to tell the story of how I became a gemological storyteller. Yes, I'm sitting right here in the road. You hear, it's not traffic, but you hear a car go right. I'm right there. It's sitting in the middle of Southwest France. I'm in this little town called Telle, which is spelled the same way as taller, T-A-L-L-E-R, Telle. So when people ask me, how did I get here? Some of you are asking that question. Some people ask it with like how's he there? And then some people are asking real from a level of curiosity. So I felt like this is the perfect time to explain how I became a gemological storyteller. And it really starts from when you answer that question. When I started to think about that question, I thought, wow, that's a huge question. But it makes me do the same thing that I ask all of my clients to do, as I ask my students to do when I teach them. I want them to go back. I want you to reflect. So when I began to think about how did I wind up being here, I had to go back to the short answer is it's a story. Now, I know that answer is not probably sufficient for most of you. So I decided to go into it a little bit deeper. Once upon a time, there was this kid named Barry Mixon who grew up in Harlem, New York. And as I've told you in the past, I grew up in a dysfunctional household. My mom was an alcoholic, and one of the major ways that I literally was able to escape the daily issues that's involved with being with someone who has dysfunctional problems or drug abuse or alcohol abuse is I escaped into television, commercials, and movies, and in books. And my mother would put me in front of the television, and I loved it because it was an escape. So remember, when I was a kid, I grew up I'm 62. I celebrated my birthday here. And remember the old television programs like Rat Patrol. I grew up loving Rat Patrol, just the whole concept of these guys driving around in a Jeep, okay, on the sands. And it was actually shot in Spain. And when I watched it as a child, I wanted to be there. I didn't even know where it was. I just knew that during World War II, these guys was out there in this exotic place, and I wanted to be Rat Patrol. In fact, so much so that 20 years later, my first car that I bought was a Jeep. I remember watching as a kid. Remember Johnny Quest? Oh my God, every Saturday morning, when they had real Saturday morning cartoons, every Saturday morning you would get up and Johnny Quest would go on to some far-off adventure. And it was so cool because you had Johnny Quest's father, the guy on the right, was a scientist, and that fit what I want to do. And Bruce in Bannon was he was a secret agent, a former secret agent. And then he had this friend named Haji and a little dog and everything. And each week Johnny Quest went somewhere. And I loved it. Remember the old show? Now I'm really dating. Remember the Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, where the guys would always just go into all types of adventures. And I'm living in Harlem, New York, and eventually we moved to the South Bronx. And yet, in my world, that was what the world was. Every Saturday, I was filled with stories of adventure and excitement, exotic places. Remember the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau. Think about it. Here it is 60 years later. 60 years later, I'm in France because when I was a kid, I watched Jacques Cousteau. I remember even having a little red beret because I thought it was just so cool. I thought that was what was required to be an adventurer. So the whole concept of being in France was instilled in me, the stories of it. And I learned how to swim on the 7th floor of my apartment building in the middle of the Bronx, watching Jacques Cousteau every Saturday. It came on Saturday night. Then you have to remember, Sunday was Mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins and what was it, Jim Morrell or something like, I can't remember what Jim Fowler. And it was amazing because here was this white man that was in this he was everywhere. He was in the desert. He was in the rainforest. He was in the jungle. And him and Jim, he would do all the talking, and Jim would be out there fighting the alligators. And the first question that I always asked my mother, how can you never see any black people? So not only did I watch the stories as a kid, but it started to plant the seed in my mind that I could do something different. That my life could be something different, that even though I saw nothing but white people on TV, I wanted to be the first black guy. Yeah, the first Negro. We were still Negroes back in the 60s. Negroes, then we moved on to black people. But I wanted to be the first black kid to go to those kind of places. And I grew up with that. And remember James Bond? I saw all the James Bond movies and how they always would open up in these really different exotic places. So it started giving me the seeds that I needed to begin to develop the thought process of traveling around the world, of being in different places. And then, of course, May 25th, 1977, I was a junior in high school and I saw Star Wars for the first time. A movie that would not only change my life, but save my life, because the whole concept of the Force spoke to me. It got, I knew, and I've said this in other episodes, when I saw Obi-Wan Kenobi say to Luke Skywalker, Luke, the Force is an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us. It binds us. It brings the galaxy together. When I heard that, I was like, that's it. Mom, I want to be a Jedi when I grow up. So then I saw Indiana Jones. I remember buying a fedora hat. And at that time, I had a little job at Burger King. And I was running down 47th Street. Well, not running too quick because, black man running down the street, you may not make it. So I was running as fast as I could. And I had my fedora on. And I had this is when Banana Republic started as a store that really catered to the whole Indiana Jones thing. And I had my banana cargo belt on and my fedora hat running down the street because I knew I wanted to be that. That's what I wanted to do in my life. So after that, I joined the obvious choice. I joined the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps at 17 years of age because I wanted the adventure. I became a navigator on C-130s. This was one of my aircraft that I was on that a friend took a picture of a long time ago. And I was a navigator there and I saw the world, and yet life happened. Life happened. And as I got older, the things that I thought was possible seemed further and further away. But I never stopped thinking about stories. I never stopped thinking about how could something on television or commercials or movies, how could those things exist, and how could it not be possible for me to live that life? I started thinking to myself, and it wasn't until really I became homeless that I began to understand the powers of stories. My mother, and I'm always proud to be able to celebrate my mom, because for a long, long time, I didn't have a relationship with my mom. My mom never told me that she loved me. And people say to me, oh, that's too bad. I'm so sorry. And, Ruby. But the greatest thing that my mother gave me was books. My mother told us, don't come home with anything less than a B on your report card. And, she was serious. Don't come home with anything less than a, and my mother was an avid reader. an average. So my mother gave me the greatest gift of all. She gave me books. And in those books, I discovered magic. I discovered those magical places. So even when I was homeless, I would hang out in Borders bookstore when they still had bookstores before Amazon, and just read books and go to different places all over the world. And it was from those books, from those stories, I began to understand the whole concept of value. How we could read a book or watch a movie, and that scene, that character, those places now had value because of the story. Because now it was a place that I actually knew about. It was no longer just the name. It was something that I knew about. And the more I read about it, the more I heard about it, the value increased, just like a gemstone. And I want people to understand the greatest thing that I've learned in my life, that nothing has value without a story. This program, the whole concept of the Gem Hunter, is to get people to understand that the things that we dreamt about, the things that you dreamt about as a child, can come true. And the way they come true is through stories. Stories that you've gotten from other places, stories that you've read about, stories that people told you about. Those things are possible for you. And my being here in France is testimony to that. I have an old friend of mine who we're no longer friends because she believes that I don't know God because I don't necessarily read the Bible. And I told her, and I'll tell anybody, God didn't give me the Bible. God gave me As a Man Thinketh. He gave me that book. And in that book, he told me that once I changed my thoughts, once I changed the way I saw the world, that the world would open up for me. And this program, this show, this my being here right now shows you that it's possible. That how someone 30 years ago could live in dumpsters and eat out of garbage cans and sleep on the streets for a year in the streets of Chicago with no friends, no family, no hope, no nothing. And yet here I am. Here I am for a month in the south of France. Dreams are possible, ladies and gentlemen. And the thing that this is my gift. This program and what I do is the gift, is the promise that I made to God. I told God, and I remember the exact day, it was December 15th, 1992, when I was truly understanding that I was homeless. I waited for death. I waited for death. I didn't know. I had no hope. And I told God that if I ever got out of this some kind of way, that I would spend the rest of my life getting people to begin to understand their own value of who they are. Because in my mind, the major problem of the world is the fact that we don't have value. We don't value each other. We don't value ourselves. As a gemological storyteller, I hear stories of people all the time, and I hear all the great and wonderful and incredible things they do with their families, with themselves, with their businesses, and who they are, how they become. And yet, when you ask them, what do they do? Not just with their job, but what do they do? They just tell me their job title. We live in a world where we don't value the things around us. We don't value the things that we have. And that's because we have lost sight of stories. I'm showing you some of these pictures of places and that I've seen, that these are pictures that I've taken. These are pictures and places that I have been. I, like Jim Fowler, have faced dangerous animals. Running from a bull. Thank God the bull wasn't alive. But running from a bull, because where I was in this town, actually in Dax, which is the neighboring town, they have bullfights. So imagine, once upon a time, I was a kid that used to watch wide world of sports. And now here I'm in a town in Europe that actually has bullfights. This is in, where was it? This is Bordeaux. This is in Bordeaux. This bridge was the bridge that Napoleon sanctioned to be created in Bordeaux. Bordeaux is the capital of wine for the whole world, and there I was. This is an old 16th century sailing ship that sailed from Europe to the United States. And this is one of the last surviving fully intact ships that I got a chance to see and be on. Dreams are the seedlings of realities. Again, Bordeaux. And this time last year, I was in this building right here because they're setting right literally on the second floor right there where I had dinner. I celebrated my 61st birthday in Bordeaux, France. More pictures of Bordeaux. Imagine the power of stories. Once upon a time, I read about Napoleon. Napoleon was just a name that I read about, and I was inspired by how Napoleon knew he was going to be an emperor. He knew that that was going to be his life because he read stories about Julius Caesar and Hannibal and Alexander the Great. He knew from a child that he was going to be an emperor. So imagine how I felt. Years later, here I am with the Emperor of France. Obviously, he's an actor. Although my niece and nephew will tell me that I'm really, and my students will tell me that I'm that old. But imagine being an African-American man in this whole crowd of people from all around the world. And I raised my hand and I said, my emperor, may I take a photo with you? And he looked at me, he was like, bien, sir, of course. And I got a chance to take a picture with the emperor of France. That is what happens when you begin to believe in your own stories. When you begin to see what you can do with your story. See, what you have to understand is you have to take your life and make it into a story. Ask yourself, who are you in? What kind of character are you in your own story? Because when you understand that, you can manipulate it, you can change it, you can bring people in and out of your life because you are the director of your own story. This is the Cité de Vin. This is the capital of wine that I got a chance to speak in Bordeaux. 600 million bottles of wine come through this area, and this is the capital of it. And imagine being there, being in this place, a place that seemed like many years ago an impossibility. That is the power of stories. Here I am. Voila. This is in the Château de Fontainebleau. All the monarchs who have ever lived reigned in France lived there at one point in time. The second largest castle or chateau in France. This is the Parthenon. So when I watched Josephine Baker being buried there, an African-American woman being from somewhere in the South, I think Mississippi, here she is in where all the great people, all the intellectuals and the authors and the playwrights and the generals and the greatest people in France are buried there, along with a little black girl named Josephine Baker. And of course, Paris, the Eiffel Tower. To see it, to experience it, That is what is possible when you begin to believe in once upon a time, in that story. See, when we get older, we lose that. That's why I teach middle school, because by the time you get to high school, you lose it. Life starts to happen. You stop believing what is possible. You know, you get a job, you get a degree. Think about what they sold us. They sold us, those of you who are my age, you know, the generation, what generation? I forgot what generation, but baby boomer generation. Remember what they sold us? That if you went to college and you got a good grades and you got a degree, you would have a job and you would be taken care of for the rest of your life. Life would be wonderful. No. It's not that it's not true, but the one thing that they took away from us is the belief in our stories. We don't believe anymore. We go to work, we pay our bills, we raise a family, and then we die. For many of us, that's what life is. But I believe that there are so many people like me who still, even though I'm 62 years old, in my mind, in my heart, I'm about 10, maybe 12 on a good day, and who still believe that it's possible to be anything you want. This is somewhere, I don't even remember where. Oh, this is in this area. This is one of the famous cyclists, a statue of one of the famous cyclists in this area who was a champion cyclist, who came from this little village. I think this village has a population of maybe like 600 people. I had more people in my high school that went in this village, and yet this is an example of what is possible when you just believe. This is in Spain. When I was here with the Siegel Institute. This is so what I would do is I would teach, and once I was finished teaching, I would go down to different places of the world. So the reason why I said it is because oftentimes things that you've experienced that give you opportunities somewhere else, you have to see how it fits into your story. I'm no longer with Siegel, but I thank God for Siegel all the time, because Siegel, that experience opened me up to the rest of the world. I would have never been here if it wasn't for that. Just like I say every week what my ex-wife said to me. If it wasn't for what she said to me, none of this would be possible. So I want to go back. I want to go back to where it all started. How did I get to be a gemological storyteller? It's because of stories. And we'll go more into that. We'll kind of do a review of how it all comes together when I see you on the other side.
I don't know this song.
My body becomes like a cement. Oh my God.
That was the better one.
Okay. Oh my God. It's like magic. Literally like magic.
Excusez-moi, madame, monsieur. Yes. Wine is just magnificent here. If you are a wine drinker, oh my God, this is heaven here. So the 7 elements of storytelling. And some of you have heard this, many have heard this before, but I want to put it in context. I want to put it in context of how it all comes together, because when I tell people how I became a gemological storyteller, this is it. This is the reason. Okay. Of course, God is in it. People always say, well, what about God? I'm not taking God away. God gave me the life and the breath and the vision and everything. All this is possible. All I'm telling you is the steps in between. The steps in between making once upon a time become a reality. And the way you do that is through a story. The 7 elements, remember: sound, passion, the hero, the antagonist, which is the most important part of the story. Those of you who are getting your butt kicked by life in so many ways, you can use that. Believe it or not, you can use that ass whooping to change your life. When you understand how it fits into your story, the awareness, transformation, and then sound again. Sound. Remember I told you sound is the initial direction you took. So when I was watching cartoons, when I was watching Johnny Quest and Mutual Omaha and Jacques Cousteau, that was the sound. Those were the seeds that was put into my head when I would listen to Mozart. And I didn't know that he was had gone through the life that he had gone through. I didn't know that he died when he was 35 years old and that he was homeless and always unemployed and had a bad relationship with his father. I didn't know that, but all I heard was his music. His music. And oftentimes I would hear Mozart through cartoons, through Bugs Bunny, or I would hear Beethoven through Bugs Bunny and some of the cartoons that they were playing. So that was the sound. Those are the seeds that were planted in my head early on. Bonjour. People are passing by. Bonjour. Comment ça va? That's the sound. So look at the sound, the things that happen in your life that put those seeds in. What are the things that you want to be? What is the thing that you thought about being once upon a time? And regain those feelings. If you're an artist, if you drew, if you wanted to cook, if you wanted to create a restaurant, what is the sound? You got to go back and remember how you got there in the first place. Then the passion. What is it that you want to do in your life? Guys, ladies and gentlemen, I've lost 2 dear friends in the last month and a half. My friend George Berry, who I've seen for 13 years, who was down for me when I was going through all my changes with CPS and everything else. He was down. He taught me how to drive for Lyft and Grubhub and things like this before all this happened. And good friend, Denise Meeks Johnson, who had just lost 2 weeks, a week ago. She was a dear friend of mine. And I loved her just because she was a Black woman who saw more in me than I saw in myself. Passion is when you wake up in the morning, you realize, oh my God, this is what I can do. This is something that I love doing every day. Passion. So what is your passion in your story? What is the thing that you can talk about, do, create every day that's not even work? I was in La Ronce with a gentleman, Jean-Marc. Jean-Marc was, and everybody's Jean here. In fact, they told me my name was Jean Barry. Okay. And he just ran a store in La Ronce, and just very nice. See how you can include your part of being a gemological storyteller is understanding and seeing how the different colors and facets, not of the gemstones, but of the people. This man was a facet in my life story. And even though we only talked and spoke for just a little bit of time, I bought some saucisson from him, which is awesome if you haven't tried it. Saucisson, some vin, all right, some fromage, some cheese. But yet, he was a part of my story. He was a part of who, and he served it in such a way that inspired me. It tastes, the food tastes better just simply because of the passion that he served it to me. Find that in yourself. Find that in the people around you. If you have people in your life who are not giving you or moving you towards a life of passion, let them go. Let them go. I don't care what relationship you have with them, husband, wife, girl, let them go because they're draining your story. If you were a director in a movie and you had a bad actor in your story, wouldn't you cut them? Wouldn't you let them go because they didn't fit into your story? The hero. The hero is the bridge. The hero is who you are. The audience has got to believe. So when I teach to children all over the world, they believe because they see that not only can I talk about Napoleon, not only do I wear the t-shirt that says Napoleon, but I saw him. I was there. I was there right next to one of the greatest emperors of all time. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, did he have issues? Sure did. Was he a dictator? Sure did. But when you come to France, it's Napoleon that did it. The whole concept of wine, not the concept of wine meaning it invented, but the French people, the love of wine and food and fresh air and oxygen came from an understanding that Napoleon had, that in order to reach the people's hearts and souls, you had to feed them. You had to give them fresh water, fresh food, because that's not what they were getting during the monarchy of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Just a time to take a sip of wine. The hero. So when I stood there in Laurence over this beautiful memorial park with the French flag that was celebrating not just the people in Laurence, but the soldiers, the French soldiers, and the Marine Corps was there too. So many people look at my Marine Corps tattoo and they don't see one of the most beautiful things about being here in France is this is one of the first places in the world that I have not experienced racism. I'm not saying that racism is not here in France. It is. But as there's something about being an African American man because of the relationship that France has with America, because of the things that France gave America, the American Revolution happened, the success of it, because French people helped America. And during World War I and World War II, Marines were here. Marines are here. So when they see me, they don't see a black man. They see a man that was the United States Marine. And they look at me and you can see it in their eyes, sometimes without any words, where they're just like, thank you. Merci beaucoup. So when I stood there, in fact, I took this picture, and the Office of Tourism for Laurent looked at the picture and they're considering using it in their advertising, because I saw the picture. I saw this beautiful mountainside with this statue of this World War I French soldier and the names of the people in the French flag just waving. And it moved me. It moved me because even though I was not there physically, I was there spiritually. And those people saw the spirit of my story involved, intertwined with the spirit of who they are. And that's what I'm talking about when you understand the value of your own stories. How all the things that happened in your life came to you, happened for a reason. You just have to see it. You have to begin to understand that this is a story. And you know, the one thing that we all know is we're going to die. All of us. Republicans, Democrats, independents, straight, gay, male, female. One day, we're no longer going to be here. When I was at the funeral of my friend George Berry, I sat in this room and he had at least 300 people there. And the first thing I thought about was, wow. One day, all of us will be in the front of the room, meaning in the casket or in that urn. And there will be hundreds of people saying, oh, you remember Barry? Oh, Barry was this, Barry was that, whatever. But one day I'm going to be there. What are you going to do with your time? What are you going to do with the story that God gave us? And we don't know how many pages, how many chapters that story is, but we know that it is a story. And what this show is about, what I want to bring, and the promise that I made to God is to help people as much as possible discover their story, discover the value of their story. The antagonist. So this gentleman this is Marco. I was playing batonk. You can see the balls. Batonk is 1,000-year-old game that the Romans played that is huge here in France. And it's such a extraordinary feeling to walk into a place and meet people who come from a different culture, different civilization, different ethnicity. And here's Marco. Marco, this little man is the champion of baton in Madagascar. And as soon as he saw me, I was just taking pictures. He just said, "You want to play?" And now this is my third time here, and I am a welcome player, even though they beat me pretty consistently. But the last 2 games we won, and I was on Marco's team, and how beautiful it is to have this grand champion from Madagascar look at me literally yesterday and just say, "USA, USA." Here's my pétanque balls. I need one little, and on the ball it says Napoleon Wa. Okay, Napoleon Wa, the black Napoleon. And this is the balls that I use. I need one a little heavier, a little bigger, but it will grow in time. That's what I'm doing. The antagonist. The antagonist is the obstacle that's in your story, and all of us have it. All of us in our stories have this antagonist, have this person that is person or thing, or sometimes it's inside of ourselves that's holding us back in our own stories. What is your antagonist? What is the thing that holding you back? So many people tell me, "I want to go to France. Oh my God, I would love to go to France." Go. Or wherever you want to go, go. Take the time, take whatever, cut off a bill, maybe turn off Netflix or something, and save your money and do whatever you need to do to create your story, to make it real. Because I guarantee you, when your last days come, as I grow older, and hopefully I will grow older, these are the memories I'm going to think about. The day on a Wednesday morning that I sat breathing in the air of France, drinking a glass of a verre of wine, verre de vin, a glass of wine, talking to all of you, talking to the world. These are the things that I remember, not my Honda Civic at home. So the antagonist is the thing that you have to overcome in order to make your move, your story move. What is your antagonist? Who is your antagonist? Who is your antagonist? That's what the gift that God, yes, Doretta, that's the gift that God gives us. And Doretta Parker, my dear friend and neighbor, taught me the best thing that you can do when you're talking about God is just say thank you. Just say thank you. No, I don't read the book, and I'm doing it more and more, Marie Meeks. I'm doing it more and more because of other people who understand the book, but I understand the feeling of what God is. This is God. This is heaven. To be honest with you, this is so magnificent in my life. When I get to heaven, and if it doesn't look like France, I'm going to say, like, what? And then the next thing is awareness. Being aware of where you are. Being aware of this moment. Awareness is when you realize that this is not something that you can do. This is something that you have to do. So, welcome to France. Welcome to my story, my life. And I'm going to ask you each and every time I see you, what are you doing with your story? What are you doing to discover the value of your own story? So until next week, I will be in another place in France. And my name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a gemological storyteller. This is what I do. I take people stories. I help people discover the value of their own stories all over the world. So until next week, au revoir, à te tella, voilà.